when you're ready. And yeah, we can start.
Oh, hello. My name is Joshua Kim, and today I would like to present my research about why South Korea needs to raise its awareness of earthquakes and how it should be prepared for them. As a resident spending half of my life in South Korea, I thought that my country needed more preparation and awareness because the preparation is not enough and the awareness is too low. Before we begin, here's a quick overview of what I will present. I'll first propose my purpose for this presentation, give some background information, and explain the construction, education, and policies related to earthquakes by comparing them with South Korea. In a big frame, this presentation will focus on comparing South Korea's circumstances and what can be improved. For example, if I talk about the construction circumstances of South Korea, then I'll tell what lack of preparation they have, explain why they need to do it, and introduce another way that can be used to improve the construction. Okay, the purpose of this presentation is to hope that South Korea reinforces its preparedness, raises awareness about earthquakes, acknowledges the reality that South Korea is no longer a safe zone from earthquakes, and notifies the seriousness of South Korea. South Korea is a peninsula that has low frequency and low intensity of earthquakes, compared to the neighboring countries such as Japan and China. So South Korea did not prepare for earthquakes and often thought that earthquakes were neighboring countries' problems and not the problems they needed to handle. This thought led to a lack of preparation and allowed this situation to be a society that can be easily damaged by earthquakes. To provide some background information about earthquakes, an earthquake is a conveyance of seismic waves caused by plate tectonic force by the movement of the Earth's outer crust. It can also be caused by volcanic eruptions and bomb tests. Earthquakes have numerous risks that lead to extensive damage too. Unlike other disasters such as typhoons and floods, earthquakes are not predictable and cannot be estimated. But due to this fact, when a massive earthquake is caused in the region, it causes gigantic damages that are hard to restore. For example, in China, in 2008, a region called Sichuan had an earthquake of 7.9 magnitudes that killed about 12,000 people and damaged properties and infrastructures in the amount of $30 billion. Also in Japan, in 2011, Fukushima had an earthquake of 9 magnitude along with a tsunami that caused 20,000 casualties and influenced agriculture, tourism, and many other industries in Japan. The earthquake seriously damaged the place, but the second damage, the tsunami, also caused massive damage to the region. When earthquakes are caused, they bring second damages, such as tsunamis and explosions of gas. Previous studies show that construction, education, and soil quality can determine the damage from earthquakes. If buildings are not constructed to withstand earthquakes, they may not endure the shaking. In terms of education, unprepared individuals may struggle during earthquakes. As for soil quality, some areas have soft soil that cannot support buildings. That leads to collapse. Thus, these factors can determine the extent of earthquake damage. As explained, the damage of earthquakes and the determination of damage will now be examined in South Korea's current circumstances of earthquakes and will be observed in how they prepare for earthquakes. While observing how South Korea prepares for earthquakes, we'll also see the awareness of earthquakes too. South Korea was a peninsula that was safe from earthquakes. However, as you see in the picture, the statistics by the Korea Meteorological Administration show that from 1978 to 2017, South Korea had 1,688 earthquakes, and as time passed, the frequency increased and the number of earthquakes was not less. This study shows that South Korea is no longer a safe zone from earthquakes and needs to be prepared. For the preparation, it seems that South Korea is trying to be prepared for earthquakes by providing information on earthquake proofing or tax cuts. However, the term of preparation history is too short. The government first started an earthquake preparation policy in 2014, so fewer policies and preparations exist. Due to this fact, the government has a lack of recognition and responsibility. Not only that, but previous studies also suggest that the public does not have an awareness of earthquakes. Even if they have awareness of earthquakes, they are the people who experience earthquakes in person. This low and lack of preparation will not be able to handle the increasing number of earthquakes in South Korea. Construction is an important factor when an earthquake is caused. If the buildings are not earthquake designed, the earthquake will lead to the buildings to collapse, and this collapse will cause extensive damage. For example, Italy has experienced a failure in construction following a major earthquake. When this earthquake happened, it left 300 people dead and approximately 1,500 people injured. Among these damages, one of the most serious was to the old buildings. Old buildings and structures were severely damaged. As you can see in the picture, the columns of the building broke and the building collapsed. This kind of damage took a long time to recover until the city formed the previous form and alerted the importance of construction. As we overviewed the importance of construction and realized that it could happen in real life, we will see how South Korea is handling its construction. South Korea has been increasing the number of earthquake-resistant buildings since 2017, which has made it essential for buildings that have more than one floor or buildings that have a total floor area of more than 200 meters square. The government also planned to complete all the school facilities before 2029 and increase the budget to support individuals financially to reinforce their buildings to earthquake-resistant buildings. This seems well, but this progress is just planned and not making great progress. Also, the amount of support for the owners of buildings is not sufficient. Due to the small amount of support, it does not make the owners who have low awareness of earthquakes reinforce their buildings because they think that it will just cost more money and be useless. To solve this situation, finding a cheap and useful construction method will be great. Now, I will introduce a construction way that I thought would be helpful. It's using cold formed steel beams. As the name says, cold formed steel beams are beams that are not heated from heat. These cold formed steel beams are popular in the construction field because of their lower cost, lightweight, and high ductility, as shown in the picture. The reason why I suggested using cold formed steel beams was because it is containing high ductility and have lower cost. As it has high ductility, it will hold up better when the building shakes because of the earthquake. Also, as it costs a lower price, it will be easier to use in real life. So I thought that cold formed steel beams will be helpful. As explained so far, constructing earthquake-resistant buildings is an important element for earthquakes. However, education is as important as well. Education is important because it will help you make decisions when an earthquake occurs and potentially save your life. If a person lacks education about emergencies, it can lead to increased fear and inability to respond effectively during a catastrophe, as illustrated in the picture. Therefore, education is important. At this point, how does South Korea educate the public? According to the Ministry of Public Administration and Security of Korea, they give simple guidance and directions when an earthquake happens. For example, one should go under a table when the building starts to shake, avoid using the elevator, and protect their head from injury. However, they lack the practice of real evacuation. Due to this fact, Koreans usually do not have the chance to remember how to respond when an earthquake occurs. Therefore, they will need to find another way to educate themselves about earthquakes. Now, I will introduce education methods based on the research. One way is educating the children. In China, they educate the children by making programs that teach them how to help each other in the situation after devastating tragedy in Sichuan in 2008. As Chinese society educated the children early, the average earthquake response of the children elevated. I chose to introduce this education method because I wanted South Korea to educate the children so that they will know what to do during earthquakes. Another educational method is the use of smartphone apps and platforms. Apps and platforms help people educate about earthquakes. As apps and platforms develop, they'll arouse public response, cause the public to get an easier approach, and increase the percentage of diverse age groups that know information about earthquake preparations and directions. Construction and education are very important, but if there are no policies, none of these methods can be embodied. Policies are the foundation of all of these methods. As we know that policies are important, I'll suggest some good policies from countries that are well prepared for earthquakes. One country is Japan. Japan has strict building standards and laws that ensure the safety of people. This standard helped the buildings to not collapse. Another country is New Zealand. New Zealand established a heritage earthquake upgrade incentive program. This supports up to 50% of retrofit cost. As these policies remain, they prevent the damage of earthquakes from increasing and support retrofit costs to building owners. To conclude, earthquakes are very dangerous and pose many risks to society. South Korea is not prepared for earthquakes, and it has increasing numbers of earthquakes. They are also not aware of earthquakes and think it is not their problem. Thus, South Korea needs to prepare for earthquakes by constructing, educating, and implementing policies that will be helpful. Also, to raise awareness in South Korea, they need to realize that South Korea is no longer a safe zone and know that they are in danger. These are the sources I used during my presentation. Thank you for listening.
All right. Great presentation. Great presentation, Joshua.
Thank you.
You did great. So I'll be opening this up to a 5-minute Q&A. Question comments are appreciated.
So, like, do they really think earthquakes are not a problem there?
Oh yeah, actually, like as I told that I lived like almost 10 years in South Korea, even though like there's sometimes like educations in school that teach like as I know for 6 hours a year, they don't even concentrate and they don't think. And as we live next to Japan, we can always hear like news from them and just hear that, oh, they're so poor living in that place. And they don't think that earthquakes will happen in real life.
Wow, that's crazy, but thank you.
No problem.
Uh, all right. So looking through, you went through construction, education, and policies, right?
Yes.
Okay. So of those three that you've researched, which is the one you think they'd be best and most improving for the best effect? Or if you had to choose one of those, what would be the best one to take?
I think it would be constructions because like policies and education, it depends on how like the people think. But if they build the buildings, even though if they're not educated, if it's like really well built, then I think it'll prevent the damage to increase. Yeah, so I think construction will be the point I'll choose.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other
Look,
questions, comments?
I have a quick question. This is Billy. Super interesting. I I listened to a podcast yesterday about how climate change is, kind of leading to a lot of new types of natural disasters that we haven't always considered. Do you think that that is part of, is there an increase in the frequency of earthquakes that you think is a result of climate change or some other factors in South Korea, that's made this a bigger problem maybe than people are currently realizing?
I'm not sure about it, but like for estimating, I think it's just kind of one of the like plate tectonic movements that I said. So as the plate moves, like the places where get earthquakes can change. So I think like climate changes can like affect on the increase of earthquakes, but I think the major reason is like the move of plate tecton, like the Earth's outer crust.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So that'll be it for that Q&A session. Joshua, thank you very much.
You're welcome.